So, hello everyone, and welcome to our second Q&A session about fasting and Corona with Dr. Françoise Wilhelmi de Toledo, the Scientific Director of the Buchinger Wilhelmi Clinics. Hello again, Françoise, and thank you once again for taking the time.
Hello, Lisa. It's a pleasure.
We're discussing today some of the questions we received in the past week, but before we start, I would like to speak about one thing with you. Even if the Buchinger Wilhelmi clinics have 100 years of experience, many do not know that we conducted already several researches about fasting and that you, Françoise, published also many articles and studies about fasting. So therefore, I would kindly ask you to give a super quick overview of the recent researches and publications of the Buchinger Wilhelmi clinics.
Well, we have 100 years of clinical experience, so we know exactly how we can accompany people in a preventive or in a therapeutic fasting. Now, we had to demonstrate the therapeutical effects, document them scientifically, and since 10 years we have a scientific department with my co-worker, Franziska Grundler, and the medical staff. We have published a big study on safety, well-being during the fasting, and long-term fasting and the therapeutical effects with 1,422 subjects. So these persons have fasted during 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, or 20 days. And this is a very large cohort. Out of this cohort, we published on blood pressure that diminished and tends to normalize during that fasting. On microbiota, we have also now made a review on long-term fasting, which is less well known than short-term fasting. Short-term fasting can be done mostly at home, but when you fast more than 2-3 days, we think that you have to do that in a special setting with a multidisciplinary guidance with a medical doctor specialized in fasting that can tell you if fasting is good for you or if another nutritional strategy would be better.
And you also have cooperations with the CNRS or the Charité Berlin, etc., right?
Yes, the French National Institute of Research, Scientific Research. They are very good in Strasbourg for fasting by animals, to de-dramatize fasting and long-term fasting. I can tell you that most of the animals living in free, they fast regularly. Some hibernate, they just fall asleep, but others do an extreme physical exercise, like the birds, for instance. When they migrate, you see the migrating birds, we look at them in the sky, they are fasting, they don't eat and they don't drink, they just take the fuel out of their own body. And then you have other animals like the penguins in Antarctic that are able to fast until 6 months per year, not at one time, and during that time they just leave out of their fat reserves and conserve the energy because they are capable to huddle together. So, love of your next is helping to conserve the warmth. And this is a survival strategy of many animals during very long fasting periods every year because of the seasons.
This is really interesting. Thank you very much. And the first question we received quite often is also about research. And apparently it is a study from Yale that says fasting is only helping with bacterial infections, but not with viruses. What is your stand on this?
Yes, it's a study I read in 2016 when it appeared. It is made with mice models. And these mice, they are very small groups, maybe maximum 15, sometimes only 3 or 4. And they are put under an enormous stress because they are inoculated with viruses in one group or with bacterium. So they provoke artificially a sepsis, which is a very severe infection. And animals like humans, when they are under infectious conditions, they stop eating. It's a very normal anorexia, we call that sickness anorexia, and is accompanied by lethargy. You're totally tired, you don't move anymore, you don't want to have social contact. These are things that we know perfectly. And with common sense, you would say, okay, the body needs the calm to just struggle against the enemy. So this is why, and this seems to be a very good reaction. And the researchers who did that study, it was interesting. At the beginning, they said, is that good not to eat, to follow your natural reflex not to eat? And they found that in the group of mice who had an anorexia, a sickness anorexia, and they say it's fasting, but it's absolutely not the definition we have from fasting. For us, fasting in a normal state is a voluntary act where you do the things with a certain rhythm, with a certain methodology, with a lot of care, with a lot of auxiliary methods like massages, like physiotherapy, like exercise, and many other things. And they compare, and they talk about fasting when it's a very artificially acute induced sepsis anorexia. So already the model for me is not valid. Nevertheless, apparently the group which were inoculated with bacteria, they profited from not eating. And in the other one, they were forced, the one with the virus, they were forced to get glucose directly in their bowels because they didn't want to eat, so you had to force them. And apparently this group had a better survival. But first, humans are not mice. And you don't know how long they had fasted. If a mice fasts half a day is equivalent, and the researchers are not really all agreeing on that point, it's like more or less 2 or 3 or 4 days of fasting in a human. So we are comparing things that you cannot compare. And I don't understand why this study is now causing this trouble. At the same time, in Yale also, they made a study in 2019 publishing that ketogenic diet, which is ketogenic, this is the metabolism of fasting, short or long, where you switch your metabolism from using glucose as fuel to using fat and ketones, which are derived from fat. And this metabolic switch leads to ketogenic situation. And this ketogenic situation seems, according to Yale, to be good for flu, to treat flu. So you see, you have contradictions. And one single study with mice with incredible different situation than fasting, for me, we shouldn't really take it seriously. It is interesting to consider that there is a difference in the immunity against viruses than against bacteria, because they are two totally different guys. If you take the bacteria, it's really living organism. They have an organization, they have a nucleus, they reproduce, they're like a little very unicellular animal. Viruses are just information. It's a genetic code in a membrane, and they don't reproduce. They just infect the guest, and the cells of it can be a bacteria, but it's cells of your organism. And they use your own nucleus and to reproduce their own information. So it's information that reproduces itself. It's a totally different thing. So we will certainly, the specialists, I'm not a virologist, but the specialists will tell us once how to react to viruses and to bacteria. In my opinion, fasting, the right length, the right supplementation if it's necessary, the right setting, and especially the right guidance and the complementary method you do with the fasting are certainly good for any type of aggression from outside. It can be a bacteria, virus, But of course, I'm not invoking here people which are confined at home and which are no experience of fasting, that they now decide they are going to make a long-term fast. It's better they use a short-term fast, like for instance, time-restricted eating, that they let a long pause across the night where they don't eat, maybe during 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours, even 16 hours, even 18 hours for the people, so that they find back to the real hunger feeling, a nice, healthy hunger feeling before you eat. And this is what this intermittent fasting is giving to you. It switches your metabolism into ketosis for a short period, maybe 1 or 2 hours, and then when you're in ketosis, then you activate your cleaning machine. This is autophagy. And I just read that the Charité in Berlin had just published a study on the mechanism how COVID and some of similar viruses function. They interfere with their own autophagy. This is a cleaning machine of the cell and of the tissues of humans and animals. They interfere with this autophagy, blocking it. And when you fast, you stimulate the autophagy. So there are so many reasons to think that an appropriate type of fasting, which only a doctor can define for you, will help at least to enhance the immunity against all types of aggressions from outside. And by the way, I made a little video on immunity, because this is the topic that is really forgotten in our anxiety about this coronavirus. Nobody talks about the healing power you have in yourself, and we see the differences. Young persons tend to be less attacked or less develop a very dangerous form of disease, of pulmonary disease with this virus. The young people are less prone to develop it. The people with comorbidities, which is overweight, which is diabetes, which is metabolic syndrome, have more. So we see there is a difference according to the reaction of our immunity. If it's good, we have better chances, even against this type of viruses. So everything you can do on your own to better your immunity will be summed up in a video as another one.
I think this is a very interesting topic. So thank you very much for preparing that separate video. The upcoming questions are especially concerned about food and corona and what to eat and when and what not to eat. And the first question immediately is about, can corona contaminated food make me sick? So that person asking that question was especially concerned about salad and if there's any way of washing it properly, or should it be stored like for a couple of days somewhere? So can you give some advice on this one?
Well, the idea of keeping it for one day in your fridge, you cannot keep it on the sunshine, which would be better against corona. But I think it's a good idea. But if you wash it very thoroughly, like we should, you are more prone to get not to get anything through this salad, except someone with a very heavy corona infection has coughed directly into your salad. So I'm not an expert on that type of thing, but I can answer you. Fresh things are the best you can do now. And if you take them organic, then still much better. So I wouldn't be anxious about being infected with corona. On salads, sometimes you can have other problems, but if they are organic and thoroughly washed, just go on, enjoy it.
That would anyway be already the next question. You were already touching a bit, fresh food, biological. The question is, what kind of food should I buy right now? Maybe you can tell us a bit what you're having in your fridge right now and what you stored and why.
Well, for me, the most important thing is to buy fresh things and avoid the ultra processed foods. You have time now. If you are at home, why don't you cook with the whole family? I think that's the most revolutionary act today, is to cook at home with fresh products and enjoy it. There is no better game with your children than really doing this as a family activity or with your friends. And of course, fresh, organic. I would suggest, if you go through the categories of foods, you have first the fats. The fats are very important because they build up a double layer in your skin and in your internal membranes, in your mucosal walls, which are the walls who separate you from outside, inside of the lungs, inside of the guts, inside of the urogenitary tract. All these membranes are very much in contact with outside, are made out of the right and good fats. So what are the right and good fats? It's the oils which are cold pressed, organic, and it's also the nuts and seeds, all types. You can buy, what I buy is linseed oil, walnut oil, sunflower oil, olive oil. These are my 4 basic oils, and I put the 3 first in the fridge and only the olive oil not. Then you can also roast a little bit the nuts and seeds, and you have very enjoyable little snacks even for children. And if they have a sweet tooth, they can just drop it in a pot of honey. So honey is also, because if you are with children, if yourself, everybody needs a little bit of sweet, but don't buy sweets. If you want a sweet, bake it. This is really the less dangerous. If you buy packages of ultra-processed sweets, then you do something bad for your health. You do something bad for your environment because it's a lot of garbage afterwards. And also, it's very addictive. So you might compensate your frustration with this type of food, and it's a catastrophe, exactly as alcohol. A glass of wine, nothing to say against it. But if you are prone to alcoholism or to exaggerate with alcohol, then don't store it. Just leave it outside. Then the carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, for me, this is fruit. Fresh fruit, compotes, you can do them cooked with a lot of condiments and especially spices. Ginger, cinnamon, I don't know the names in English, but you know, well, all what these spices are. They allow you to do a lot of different aromas and tastes with simple food, like a apple compote, for instance. I put some the skin of the lemons and some ginger, and you have a wonderful thing, which is better than any sweet you can buy processed. Of course, complex carbohydrates. I buy whole rice, quinoa, millet, the cereals you like, and pasta, all types of pasta. Just don't do it every day, but a good pasta with an excellent sauce you do yourself with real tomatoes, onions, some rosemary, and a little bit of garlic. And this is bringing me to the most important part, if you want. These are the vegetables. There's such a big multitude. They are so beautiful. They take so much time to prepare. It's the best. You get busy. You get your kids busy with that, and you can vary to an infinity of variation with that. If you add in a good vegetable, even just zucchinis, and you add a good oil, a good olive oil when it's cooked already, and then you eat that with some rice and a good salad, this is a very wonderful meal that must not be expensive, even if it's organic. So we come to the proteins, and the people who are vegan, of course, they eat pulses and legumes. These are chickpeas. You can do chickpeas as hummus. The Arabic kitchen is excellent for cooking the pulses, and also the Indian cooking. Lentils, for instance, dal. Every Indian in India, in some parts, like the South, where they are very vegetarian, they eat dal every day. So the legumes are inexpensive. They are rich in proteins, and if you associate them with a cereal like I said before, rice, for instance, then you have a very rich meal with all the amino acids you need. You can add some good eggs. If you have organic ones, some salmon, some fish, if you have a good sauce. Don't exaggerate with red meat, and if you don't buy it, it doesn't matter. So if you want to have kilos of lemons and oranges because they give you the vitamin C, and maybe there is another question on that.
Absolutely. I will come back to this in the very end.
Get something? Because
Sorry?
you are also a vegetarian and you eat very healthy.
I am, yeah, absolutely. So is the question what I'm having every day?
Yes.
So, well, basically pretty much what you said. I'm not having breakfast, and for lunch normally I have a big bowl of salad and sometimes a cheese in it or nuts. And in the evenings there's normally a huge bowl of vegetables and some rice or lentils, chickpeas, what you said. And afterwards I'm having some fruit or sometimes a tiny bit of self-made homemade chocolate, which I really enjoy a lot.
Good.
But as said, I'm doing this on my own, and it's really an excellent treat. And nuts also very much, especially in the evenings, or an orange or yeah, making me very happy, that food. The next question, you were shortly touching this topic already, is about drinking and excess eating. And the question is how to refrain from stress eating or stress drinking during Corona. Do you have any tips or advice?
I like to say that you should give your day a structure and a good rhythm. If you start the day by waking up and looking at the sky to wake up and to be alert, doing some stretch exercises, and then washing and putting on clothes, not just the out of bed look, and doing what you have to do, waiting to be hungry, drinking some warm beverages, and eating when you are hungry. This is the rhythm everybody has to find, the rhythm of the hunger and satiety. This can lead you to make 2 meals like you do, like I do, but younger people might need 3. The only thing is you need, in my opinion, to be one day really hungry. So you know what your nutrition needs are, and you try to separate the needs for nutrition from the needs for emotional feed, emotional nourishment. And of course, if you are anxious all the time, then call someone. You have a lot of psychotherapists who are working all the time today, and this can give you release. You can meditate if you are prone to something like this. Pray, of course. Listen to the Pope, listen to a spiritual master, because it's a wonderful time to experience anxiety like a sort of abnormal state, because you think too much. You just think about, you project all the horrible things that could happen or are going to happen in your mental activity. And in the now, in the moment you are living, sometimes you feel well. You have no disease yet, for the ones who are lucky not to have anything. Maybe you are in an environment which is okay. You have food, you have the basics. So be in the now and just think, okay, sometimes I need time to anticipate what might happen, because I need to take care for myself and for the others. But when you stop making plans, then just be there where you are, and you will have less anxiety, so less need to compensate the anxiety. And then you have all the nutrition of the soul, like founder of our Buchinger Wilhelmi clinics, Otto Buchinger. He said, music, literature, read a good book, poems. You can maybe write a diary on your own. Then humor. In internet, you have so many funny things that the people are exchanging. This is helping you to keep the mood. But there are, of course, prayers if you have a spiritual background and an inner life. Then, of course, you're better off in times of confinement. And you can develop it because you have in the internet excellent and really inspiring spiritual masters. You have to find the right ones. And there is, for the people drinking too much, there are anonymous alcoholics. They have immediately switched their program in online because the group meetings are immensely important. And today the people are so innovative with group meetings. This is helping also a lot. But in my opinion, being hungry, always getting back to hunger, if you have a bad mood or if you are anxious or any type of mood dysfunction or any type of body dysfunction, just wait until you are hungry, until you eat. And this is resetting something in your rhythms that is going to help you a lot.
Thank you so much. Those were the questions for today. I thank you so much for taking the time answering all of those. And if we receive additional questions, I think we will produce just another Q&A session the next week or the week after, huh?
With pleasure, with pleasure. Bye-bye, everybody, and make the best out of it.
Thank you so much and see everyone soon again. Bye-bye.